1460 WVOX.
Stay tuned now for the Racing for Heroes radio show with host Brett Morash on 1460 WVOX.
All right, Racing for Heroes fans, it's Brett Morash, host of Racing for Heroes radio here on WVOX 1460 AM dial and worldwide at WVOX.com. And we are super proud today to have two amazing individuals that are going to talk about everything kind of threats facing you as a normal person, all the way to what you can do in order to protect yourself from those threats. And so we have Nick Rabinow, who is one of our board members at Racing for Heroes, but he's also the head of our private security that Racing for Heroes, RFH Tactical Mobility has, as well as Mike Ebach, who is our chair of our board and is the CEO of RFH Tactical. So without further ado, gentlemen, are you on the line?
I'm here, Brett. Nick's here. Mike's here.
Gotcha. And I promise that I will make sure that we don't step on each other on the radio. So if you have to say over, make you feel more comfortable, it will work.
Roger.
Roger, over. In fact, just so you guys know, Mike, our sound engineer, is a mortarman in the Army, and so he's excited about having a couple of 7th group guys on.
Right. So when I say hang it, he understands.
He's laughing, waving at me. All right, so Nick, let's start with you. I know you served in the 7th group as well. You're on A team 764, which is, if I'm not mistaken, going to be your race car number. And then you went into private security. So tell us about that voyage.
Yeah. So my name's Nick Rabinoff. I'm out of Illinois. And after I graduated high school, I went into the Army, got into the Green Berets, and I was at 764, which is Charlie Company, 2nd Battalion, 7th Special Forces Group out of Fort Bragg. Mike was actually on one of the neighboring teams back in that day at the time. And I did 2 tours to Afghanistan after 9/11 and went to a bunch of schools and got a lot of experience overseas and other international contracts. And then I ended up getting out of the military 2003 and started my voyage in the private sector as a contractor. I started off with a company doing dignitary protection over in Iraq. And I did a total of 18 additional trips to Iraq and Afghanistan as a contractor over the course of 14 years. And in between all that, I also trained law enforcement SWAT teams back in the States and did executive protection for CEOs of oil and gas and did a lot of risk management in addition to that. And since then, I've now transitioned over to a board member on Racing for Heroes and an executive under RFH Tactical Mobility on the for-profit company. And then I still work in the security and risk management and training sector.
That's amazing. And so let's ask about that. What is that like? What is private security look like? You know, because I think people see it on television and they see things like that, but they don't really understand it. Like, how is that? I mean, I'm sure there's a piece that's discreet. I'm sure there's a piece that is, very selective on who you pick for that type of work.
Yes. So when it comes to the actual work itself, choosing individuals to work those security jobs, whether they're in the United States working for corporations or whether you're working in high threat countries overseas for the government side, you definitely have a variance of individuals that you're going to bring on. And it comes down to the assessment and selection of the individual, their experience level, working in those environments, and then also just their personality, the relation between them and the client or the individual they're working with. So there's a lot of dynamics that go into that.
Yeah, sure. I can only imagine. And, it sounds like you've done a lot of that work overseas as well as the United States. Is there a major difference between that at the end of the day, or is it very similar type of work?
There's a big difference because in the United States, it's more focused on risk. When you're working with clients, it's all about evaluating their safety and harm and embarrassment. In the States, there's a lot more risk management and low profile security. When you're working overseas, especially in a high threat country such as Iraq or Afghanistan, you're going to definitely increase your signature and your visibility as a security professional. So You might carry different weapon systems. You might have different equipment. You might drive differently and provide, security and daily operations just a little bit different to deal with that heightened situation.
Gotcha. That's amazing. And so I think I would like to ask a question about kind of risk, because I think that's where you were going when you were talking about how do you develop what that plan looks like and what are you trying to counter. And if I'm not mistaken, there's an enormous range of what that threat and risk looks like out there.
Sure. What I can do is I can talk about one of the projects that we worked
Sure.
and that I ran. So up in Minnesota, when the George Floyd situation took place early this
Sure.
spring, there was a lot of chaos. And so by day one, day two, you had a huge uprising downtown, a lot of people protesting, and people took advantage of it. It was a perfect storm. There was COVID, loss of jobs. You had people not getting their stimulus checks, and then now the protesting for the situation took place. So the perfect storm turned into just utter chaos, a lot of looting, a lot of vandalizing. And where risk comes into is we don't look at the second and third order effects. What we look at is, we have chaos in the city. But what they don't think about is the area that chaos is taking place is an inner city area where now a transit system is shut down. People are they're either poor or in poverty, and they don't have transportation to 5 miles away to a grocery store, yet the grocery store that's right down the road is getting looted. How do you go about dealing with continuity of business? And so we were there doing a lot of security for various businesses, grocery stores and whatnot. And the idea behind that is if you provide security for those, you aren't going to have a $4 million business burnt down the next day that you have an insurance claim on. And on top of it, people can go grocery shopping the next day after they realize what they did the night before.
Right. And I think that, every time we've seen riots in the past, that is what happens. Because, as you know, here in New York City, when the riots were occurring during this past summer, there were major businesses like Saks Fifth Avenue that not only boarded up their entire windows, but had folks there in black polo shirts with dogs and that sort of thing as sort of a deterrent threat.
You're right. And in your area, there's a viable MS-13 threat up there. So I think that's, that really ties into it, and it brings it home to people that are listening right now because they've experienced it or heard about somebody that has either been robbed or their house been looted or people being injured from them. And the problem with those kinds of situations is they're violent and unpredictable. Yeah. And so for a person, a daily shopper at the grocery store, or an individual, going anywhere throughout town, they have to definitely have their situational awareness and security awareness with them so they can, protect themselves and have some defensive measures in place if something happens.
Right. But that's where it's like at the individual level too, right? Because let's say, for example, I want to go to a protest because I'm an activist and I'm interested in supporting one cause or the other. That doesn't matter. Those situations can, in fact, quickly get out of control. And then me as the individual might want to extract myself too, right? And those are sorts of things I think that are important for people to kind of have some sort of education on, whether it be like day-to-day security, going to the supermarket, or, if you want to place yourself in a position such as I just described.
Correct. The situation you described, we experienced that up in Minneapolis. The highlight locations of where all the violence was were at the location where George Floyd passed away and at the police departments. And so if you think about those locations, from a news reporter standpoint, they want to go get the story. But at the same token, they need to protect themselves because once they get in the heart of that chaos and everybody is chaotic around them, they're going to be in harm's way. And so staying on that outer line, if you're going to go and support or just observe a situation like we're talking, you definitely want to stay on the outer line areas. You want to protect yourself. You want to make it to where maybe there's nobody behind you, so you don't have to be watching over your back the whole time, but you can see everybody in front of you for surveillance purposes.
So, this kind of makes me think I have a daughter that's in high school, and I know that your kids are now going to college. That would be sort of thing that from a training perspective, you would just want them to kind of have. And I think that maybe Mike can explain to us like what that kind of tailored training would look like for, let's say, a student or a family or a different group.
You want me to talk, Brett?
Yeah, Mike.
Hey, just real quick,
Over.
what that would look like is basically, we preach the difference between making yourself a hard target and a soft target. Just being switched on and watching your environment, keeping an eye on things, it's something that the average person doesn't think about. They don't watch their environment. A lot of people are on their cell phones or paying attention to other things, or their kids could be distracting them. But doing that 360 security at all times, watching, what's going on around you, it doesn't have to be like a criminal activity. It could be as much as paying attention so a tree limb doesn't fall down and hit you, or a car pop the curb and hit you. And just being situationally aware and a lot of people are not. They go about aimlessly and, walk into things. And it's just as simple as that. Make yourself a hard target. And when people see a hard target, they venture to bounce off of it and go to a soft target.
Yep.
That's what you have to do. That's what you have to do in today's environment.
Yeah, and Mike, maybe pull a string on that. So, as you guys know, and you give me a hard time about all the time, I was in the Navy on ships, and one of the things that we used to refer to as scope lock, and it's when people get so focused on the radar screen, they're just missing all of the other stuff going on around them. And you have to kind of train yourself in order to prevent you from getting scope lock. I'm sure the Army has some sort of version of that where you're really just focused so closely that you're missing the bigger picture. What can someone who's like a normal person do in order to prevent getting that happening to them?
For one, is practice it all the time. Just because you're in a comfort area doesn't mean that things don't happen to you when you're at home. Be vigilant while you're home. Keep your doors locked. The window blades cut. Just there's so many different things you can do. They need to always not be. We do what we call green, yellow, and red, like your alert levels.
Sure.
I mean, most of the time you run into yellow. About the only time you're in the greens probably when you're laying in bed. Because in today's society, people are kicking doors in while people are home, and they don't care. They'll shoot you and take what you got. It's just the reality of what it is. Not to scare people, but it's the reality. So if you lock your screen door in front of your other door that you lock, your hardened door, that provides a lot of noise, a lot of atmospheres that they have to go through prior to getting in. They have to make all that racket prior to getting into your hard door. Then they have to do the hard door. That provides extra time for you to climb out a window, get out of the house, or do what you're going to do, or a neighbor hear them, or someone's ring bell picking them up. Or it's just that extra little layer of little things like that people don't think about.
No, and I think that's critical. And, like you mentioned before, it's like, when people have their focus looking in their phone constantly and they're just not aware of their surroundings, they place themselves and others at risk by doing that.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. If you drive into any major city, you get around a high populous area, just look at the cars around you and look at the people who are staring down at their phones. I mean, it's over 50% of the people on the highway, when you're getting into the cities and they're slowing down, they're staring into their phones, or they're looking into that dashboard where they have their phone hooked into or something. They're not paying attention to their surroundings at all. And that's just, that's being a soft target.
It is. And, and I think that's where, people need to ask themselves, how can I get that sort of training? And so, Mike, could you explain to us, though, what RFH Tactical does? Because if I'm not mistaken, not only do you do training for groups like, let's say, the federal government or Marshal Service or things like that, but you can also do training for normal folks, or the average Joe, if you will.
Yeah, so we bring them in and we basically teach them a situational awareness course or individual protective measures, is what we can call for the civilian side.
Yeah.
Back from the military days, it was called individual terrorist awareness course. And back in the day, families went through it. When you went overseas with your family and your special forces, your families went through the course with you. It shows you everything from how to identify bad mail into your mailbox.
Oh, wow.
How to keep your car clean so people don't know who you are, what you do, and not give them a reason to break into your car. Keep your car clean and organized. You can tell somebody's messing with it. You can tell if somebody's putting a tracker on your car. how to answer the door, how to, just be situationally aware. I mean, it's, fencing, the doors, to putting, a layer or two of window tint on all your windows, because it keeps it from shattering into small little pieces for someone to be able to reach right in and grab you in your car, and, keeps glass from flying. It's just a bunch of little things like that. And we do it for any civilian that would like to come to a course. We put them in there and put them in different situations. And if they want, at the end of it, we give a quick, hey, here's a weapon, and it's not, everybody doesn't have to, but here's how a pistol operates, here's how a revolver operates, here's how an M4 carbine operates, here's how an AK-47 operates.
And I think that's actually an important piece of the training too. I know a lot of people are, let's say, gun shy, for lack of a better term. But I think it's important to understand like what those things can do and what they can't do. We had our fundraiser this past summer at Gunning with Green Berets, and I like to consider myself a fairly decent shot, but I was terrible with the AK-47 that you had there. Terrible, Mike, like embarrassingly so. But I think that's also one of those things is that, you're not, a lot of times when you're talking about like random crime, those people, when they're shooting, what are you supposed to do as a regular individual? And I think this goes back to like, what is cover and concealment and kind of those things as well.
Yeah, for example, like if what we use as an example of a family, if you're traveling overseas or anywhere in the United States, now you don't, U.S. I'm not saying U.S. is. I mean, it's probably more dangerous here if you step into the improper places in these cities nowadays than it is anywhere overseas. If you and your family are going down the street and a guy pulls a gun and you tackle him, Brett, does your daughter know how to pick that gun up and stop this guy from pulling his knife out or pulling another gun out and getting you? Heaven forbid that would have to happen, or she going to sit there and watch her father pass away in front of her because nobody knew to pick that gun up and do something, and people, well, that'll never happen to me. Well, do a little research. It does happen to people. It happens a lot.
And it does. And, you've met my daughter, Julia, and I can't tell you how many times we've watched on TV, and when that gun does get dropped, she's like, someone pick up the gun. So you trained her well, Mike, last time we were down there. So.
Right.
So
exactly. It's just, hopefully you never have to use it. Hopefully nobody ever has to do that. But if you do, you know what to do now.
Well, Mike,
instead of having to sleep with that and lose sleep over it the rest of your life.
Right. But I think that there's all sorts of little techniques and stuff like that it's just one of those, if you ever need it, it's there in your brain. And, one of the things you told me when we first met, we were talking about driving. And if you end up in a situation where you're driving your car and you're near bullets, what do you do? Because you have to drive, right? And what you mentioned was not only do you have to get distance, but place your head behind the B pillar.
Yeah, for example, some little tidbit like that, because there are shootings. When your family's out, if someone comes out into a mall parking lot and starts shooting, what are you gonna do? Stand there? No, now to get behind a B pillar, C pillar, or stack the pillars. And you stand a better chance of survivability than just stand there out in the open thinking you're good behind a car door.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or a quarter panel or whatever.
Right.
So it's just one of those things, right? All that little stuff like that. Yeah, hopefully you never have to use it once again. But, man, just knowing that, because, we were out in Tennessee and there was gunfire at the Walmart in Tennessee out into the parking lot. It's like, hey, man, what's, and there's people who run around like lost sheep, running all over the place. No, me, I just live behind a B pillar and like, oh, where's this coming from? Just move to the next one.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Move from cover spot to cover spot, 3 to 5 second rushes from one spot to the next, and know that when someone's shooting at you, that it's hard to hit a moving target.
Right.
So keep your butt moving from hard point to hard point till you're away from time and distance away from the enemy.
You bet. And also, I think it's important for our listeners. We're talking about having RFH Tactical Mobility have online classes. That's coming up, right?
Yeah, Brett. I got Arian and Darren are back at the office working on it right now because that requires a little tech stuff, and I'm not very savvy at that. So they're working on how we're going to set that up. And we'll have a one pager done here by COB today.
All right, Roger that. And we'll share that with all of our listeners and with the WVOX community as well. So I think that's exciting. And I think it's something that like every person could have, or even a training, like, you could export training up here to like New Rochelle and could have it at the American Legion post for regular families, right?
Oh, absolutely. We can, we have a bag and helmets. We will travel. It's not hard to do.
Yeah. Well, and you can get good bagels and stuff up here too, Mike, and pizza. So it'll be a little better than Aunt Millie's. Not that they're great. They're great. I don't want to misstep. But for those who've been to Milton, North Carolina. So listen, let's change gears here a little bit and talk about racing. So first, Nick, your car's coming out, right? The 764 car, right?
Yeah, we've been getting it finalized. So that car originally, Mike bought it about a year and a half ago, I think, and it had Mike's original ODA team number. So ODA is Operational Detachment Alpha 773. That was the team that Mike was on. And so we're going to switch it over for this year to 764, which was my old team back in the Green Berets.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right. And where are you planning on racing, Nick?
Our intent is to race all along the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, up to Virginia, kind of in our I-95 corridor from where we have Racing for Heroes. Gotcha.
And I'm assuming you've had a chance to drive the car already, right?
No, not yet. Nope. It's actually down getting spring smashed, the shock set, and we are looking forward to getting in the car after we get back from Florida next week.
Gotcha. And Mike, how about the 773 car? What's going on with that?
We're ready to go. We've taken it out in practice. The car was good right out of the box. Thanks to Longhorn Chassis and Wesley and Donald Brashard.
Mm-hmm.
They really helped us out. And when I first time out in the car, it was phenomenal. It was fast. It was good. Let me know I can still drive a late model. I was doubting myself a little bit, but it was good, man. That Longhorn Chassis is incredible. So we're ready to go. We're race ready. We're going to try to get some practice in on the 7th at Fayetteville,
Mm-hmm.
February 7th.
Great.
Get all the Racing for Heroes cars out there. All the guys that carry our logo are invited to Fayetteville Speedway. And we're just going to do a couple hours of practice and give the guys a little bit of dinner before, do a little cookout for everybody before they kick off the race season, just to show our appreciation for lugging our logo around the world.
No, that's amazing. And you mentioned Don Brashear, and of course that's Payload Racing or Payload Motorsports with Tim McCready. What's going on with Tim?
Tim's he's down in Florida now running. They're kicking off their season and they're busy. I mean they're on it. So we're going to try to get down there and see them a little bit. Hopefully Nick and I can get some time to go over and see the guys at the track this weekend down in Tampa, and we'll see what's going on. Well, Tim's going great things, and I look for him to be contenders to win the championship in the Lucas Oil Series again.
Well, he came in second, I think, last year, right? But he's just an amazing driver.
I think 2 years in a row he's come in second. He's been the bridesmaid twice now. It's time to be the bride. So hopefully he can get these. I mean, what a team! These guys aren't only just they're quality, but what nice guys. I mean, just Donald Brasher, and that whole team. It's just great Americans. It's amazing. When you get down there to Longhorn and we help them clean out the truck and stuff, just talking with the guys. I mean, with them at the track, they're just good people.
Yeah. And you mentioned Longhorn. Who owns that, by the way? I mean, I know, but who is it?
It's Bobby, Justin, and Terry Labonte. So Labonte's own the Longhorn Chassis. Great facility down in Trinity, North Carolina. I was going to suggest to anybody, if you're going to get into a dirt late model, that would be the chassis to slide into, with the Bilstein shocks getting behind it.
Mm-hmm.
They make a great product. So they've been they helped us out a little bit on shocks, and it's pretty good. We're just a good family of people they got there, with the whole Longhorn racing team.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just a quick shout out though for Don's daughter Whitney. She just had her first baby boy, so a future racer, I think, in the Brasher family.
Yep, new baby. He's a grandfather now. I think for second time or third time.
Oh boy, he's such a nice guy. I've had a chance to talk to him a few times, so just great. And then just so one last thing though, Mike, if I do want to know more about RFH Tactical Mobility, where should I go to look?
You can just go to RFH, www.rfhtacticalmobility.com. That's rfhtacticalmobility.com. We also have a Facebook, and I think we have a LinkedIn also. So just look on there and send us any questions. Our emails are on there. Our phone numbers are on there. If anyone really want to know or set up a class for their group of individuals, say if it's, some kind of club that wants to set up a training for them, just tell me what you want, and we'll give you some ideas and bounce it back and forth, and we'll make it happen.
Great. And you can actually do corporate outings too, if I'm not mistaken, if someone's out there listening and wants to bring the whole team together. Yeah,
so we do team building events, corporate outings. We can bring them into Virginia International Raceway at our house there, and they can go out and shoot skeet. We can do pistol rifle marksmanship. We can do go-karts. We can do some driving exercises where it's like team building, off-road experiences, ATVs, and we do team building with it and leadership. We can teach a little bit of leadership because we got a few military officers hanging around it.
Roger.
A little bit about leadership. So anything like that, we do it for several other organizations, and they love it. Just taking some of them, putting them on a rucksack on their back and going for a walk is, different for them.
Yeah.
For me, I carried that North Carolina green tick on my back for 25 years, and I just had enough.
Right. Well, you and Nick, and listen, guys, we're at the end of the show, so I want to thank both of you for being on. It's been my honor, and I'm hopeful that all the listeners learned some amazing new ideas for themselves as they become hard targets. So thanks again, guys.
Thank you. All right, guys.
All right.
Take care.
Talk to you soon. Bye now. All right, Racing for Heroes radio fans, they are end of the show and our Racing for Heroes theme song.